Welcome to the Subconscious Elements Podcast, a podcast where we break down gene keys, movies, spiritualness, books, everyday life, relationship. And right now we're currently working our way through the gene keys. We're on the 9th gene key, and I'll let my co-host Tori Setliff get you started.
All right, so the 9th gene key is the power of the infinitesimal. And at the shadow frequency, you'll see inertia. Through transmuting this, we reach the gift frequency of determination, and finally the acidic state of invincibility. So at the shadow frequency, this is when a person becomes so focused on the minute details that they become frozen and stagnant in old patterns that no longer serve them. So you can see this as a reluctant energy or a diverted energy, which both is going to keep that person basically in the same old habits that they can't seem to get rid of. And the shadow frequency, this is also the domestication of dreams. So basically all the dreams that you have ever imagined in your mind, you just can't seem to manifest into your reality.
Yeah, so the shadow inertia, if you look up the definition, it's inability to change. So think about like the word inert. Like it has potential energy, but it's not going anywhere. It's stationary in time and space. And you brought it up, it's like they're pretty much going in a circle. They're not really advancing. They're just following the same patterns. And I feel like that's a really relatable idea. I think that we're all kind of like, we all have that in small ways, right? It can be where your whole life's a big circle and you're just kind of on the treadmill, not really going anywhere. But you can also have it to where like maybe you're trying to break like smaller bad habits that you have. So you'll be able to find this pattern and pretty much all throughout your life, no matter where you're at, you're going to find this somewhere that you might be doing this.
Yeah, I was saying that there's an ancient saying that everything begins with the first step, and then even further broken down that everything begins with the feet beneath you. And so just breaking everything down instead of looking at the future and anticipating and thinking of what you think it might be or putting fears on what might happen, rather than just breaking everything down and focusing on making the best action in the moment for that vision that you have for the future. That's definitely very powerful. I can definitely relate to this in a sense of levels in jiu-jitsu when you see the very beginner as just making a lot of random movements and they're not really directing their energy in one specific direction. And then as they progress, you see that they are more focused and they do have strategies, they do have things that they're planning. And then further down progression, you see more and more precision. And when I was training the other day, I was rolling with a blue belt and I was sensing his energy, and the thought in my mind just kept bringing precision. Because I could see in his movements the way that I do the same thing, where I'm just moving frantically and I'm not in a relaxed state. I'm just very almost explosive and I'm not really doing anything. So it's just being more precise with your movements, focusing on that vision, whether it's in training or life in general.
Right. Yeah, the saying that you're talking about was by Lao Tzu, who is like a master poet and really pushed a lot of ideas on the forefront as far as like Buddhism and Confucianism and Taoism. I think he was a major religious figure for Taoism, I believe. And I think he was also did an interpretation of the I Ching. No, not the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching. And it's like this, there's an idea or a poem about the Tao, which is the way. So he was like known as someone who was, I guess he's like the Buddha of Taoism. And yeah, the main saying that they were quoting was, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step."
Mm-hmm.
And then the one broken down further was, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins right underneath your feet." Just kind of telling you that it's where you place your focus. And I really liked your analogy of the white belts thing. Is like, yep, they're all over the place and they're not really amounting to anything. And then I see sometimes in your jujitsu, you've gotten a lot better recently. You've been training a lot more. But before, I would tell you is like, you're just doing random stuff still. And you would sometimes figure it out and follow your pathways. But sometimes you would start these pathways and then you'd be like, oh no. And then you'd reset and you'd kind of like start yourself over because you realize it wasn't where you wanted to be. But now it seems like you've got a couple paths that you like going down to and have more intention of your energy instead of like, oh, I'm going to do this. Wait. No, I'm going to do this. But one of the major ones too that I've really related to, yes, one of the major things that I'm experiencing on where to place your focus is in the middle of competing. When the room is spinning or your heart rate's through the roof or there's the most chaos in the match, the only thing you can focus on is doing your best in the moment that you're in. And what you find out is that as you mount your defense together and just deal with this one thing, if you try to think about the end of the match, you're going to quit. If you try to think about the whole day, if you're at a tournament, you're going to quit. You have to just think about, in this very moment, I'm going to just keep going. And so you defend that, or you defend whatever current attack you are, and then you keep defending, and then you keep defending. And the next thing you know, your attacker is tired and you're in a place now where the room isn't spinning, or you have a method to the chaos all of a sudden. And then now you can attack your opponent and they're distraught and tired and the room's spinning for them. So just one of the main keys to competing and your nerves and dealing with chaos and how do you funnel the match into somewhere that you can understand and be comfortable is focusing on the moment that's in front of you and not about the match as a whole or the whole day when you're going to have multiple matches. If you're thinking about your finals match and you haven't even made it out the semis, and that's really easy to get caught up in that. If you're really good, you're like, okay, I'm going to beat this guy, take this guy out, and then worry about this guy, or like how many different divisions you're going to win a medal at. Like all these things can like play. And then next thing you know, you're in a tight spot in the middle of your match, and focusing on the future is the last thing you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have found recently that, dealing with the exact moment instead of worrying about what might happen. It's like you find peace in that moment. You're like, okay, focus, and then you can regain strength in that moment. Because I just tell myself, it's like, relax, you've been here. Nothing that you're imagining is going to happen. Like, imagine the better possibilities and trying to shift that mindset from the bad things that I'm worrying about happening, instead focusing on what I need to do to make it exactly what I want to happen. So, and then that leads us further down towards the gift frequency, which is determination. And this basically is just having a vision or something that you're working towards that can kind of guide you. And it's saying that all actions, regardless of how small they are, therefore have meaning and are the most meaningful, because no matter if you think someone is watching or maybe it doesn't amount to anything, it's those very small details that build the foundation for something greater.
Right. Yeah, I was talking about focus on the moment, not focusing on the future. And it also mentioned how details can overwhelm you. Right. And if you think about all the different possibilities, I find that, both in jiu-jitsu, you can get overwhelmed with all the different possibilities that can happen in a competition match. Even when it comes to teaching all the different things I can teach, the things I should teach, the details within each technique. But I also see it in the creative side as well, where people who are trying to create something get so caught up in the details that they never actually get around to doing the thing. And the mind wants to overcomplicate it and wants to come up with all these fantastical ideas what it could be, what they should do, how they should go about it, what's entertaining, what's not entertaining. Like, it's so funny how people will be like, oh, I think it would be cool if it was like this. And it's like, yeah, you might think that'd be cool, but unless you try it, you don't really know.
Mhm.
It's like, you have no idea what people would think is cool. I can't tell you how many things I put out there that I thought people were going to love. And it just kind of went, and, so it's like, before you can come up with this grand idea of like how entertaining something's going to be, or all these different segments you're going to do, or all these different types of things you're going to incorporate, you just got to put something out there and from there it grows. Right. But if you think of like you've seen me post and you see how many different things that I'm doing to make one little post. It's like, if someone showed me like the start to end, the process from the very beginning, I'd be like, oh, hell no, I ain't doing all that. Like, why would I do that? But it's just a foundational skill that builds up over time. And then you start to add more and add more because it gets easier and easier. But, yeah, definitely. Yeah. What you're saying is if you have the higher purpose, you can find a way to get like back on track and not get too lost in the little things that don't matter.
Yeah, I was saying with building these foundational habits, you are essentially creating a groove from which things can move more fluidly and easier. And it's saying that the most difficult thing is just starting. And we've experienced this a lot where we've have all these ideas and we're like, man, but I just really want to go do this instead. It's like actually setting the time and putting it into action is a whole different thing. So once you get over that, everything else starts to become a lot easier. So you learn things along the way. And I heard something yesterday, it was saying learning to be okay with something being a 95% instead of focusing on, no, it has to be 100 or nothing, 100 or nothing. And it's like, no, it can be a 95. That's perfectly fine.
It could
No
be a half.
matter, yeah, it can be 90, it can be 80. Well, like whatever it is, as long as you're putting in effort, it's room for improvement should therefore give you more drive.
Right. You want to build a habit. We actually talked about it in the last podcast about atomic habits. Did we bring it up? Well, atomic habits built off that same principle where you want to get a win in regardless of how long it is or how big it is. And I was telling you that the other day or a couple of weeks ago when you're struggling with the running thing and you want to run for an hour every time you go running. I'm like, Tori, you're not gonna be able to run for an hour all the time. Sometimes you're gonna have to go running for 20 minutes and 30 minutes because it's more important to get the 20 and 30-minute run in than it is to, oh, well, I don't have time to get the hour, so I'm just not gonna go. It's like, you gotta just fit in whatever little time in that you can get. And then over time, you'll start to get more of those hour longs in because you'd be surprised how often when you go into starting to do something, then you just finish out the whole hour. But again, just like going to what you were saying about, it doesn't have to be like 100%. And we definitely experienced building the momentum with this podcast. I mean, this is a classic example of, it was really difficult for us just to get through the first and second episode. Now we're kind of in a groove now where we at least kind of feel confident that we can at least do one a week. And then we feel it as we're building it, it's like the start of it, you can kind of feel it a little bit of how awesome it can be. And then now as we keep adding it and adding to it, it's like, wow, this thing can be like even bigger. And it's like more exciting to keep going. Now we can't wait till we shoot another podcast because it just feels good with this aura that we've created.
Mm-hmm. And putting out more positive information for the world. Hopefully it can affect people in a positive way.
Yeah.
Maybe ignite something inside of them that leads them on their own journey, which is how it started for me. I was listening to another podcast and it really motivated me. And I was like, wow, maybe there's something I can learn about this. And just started my own journey. So I've been reading this book for over a year now. So it's definitely something I always come back to. There's so much information in there.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the things that you hear in this book are all of a sudden like apparent in your reality. And it's like in a good way. It's not like in a scary way, but in like oh no, this book was like saying how this is something we need to work through or something to be mindful of, or how how the human mind works or people's emotions.
Yeah, it makes you realize that everyone is experiencing the same thing, and that there are reasons for people to be in their shadow frequency, and that gives you the opportunity to help them out and show them the way. And that's really what motivates me, is like, now that I'm somewhat aware that these things exist, I can therefore help other people, and whenever they're stuck in their own mindsets, and maybe they don't have that influence in their life telling them that there's another way to think. So
Yeah. One of the major things that I've noticed since becoming a content creator is I motivate others to create content. And I should tell them how easy it is. And I've helped multiple people like skyrocket their channels just by giving them a couple tips. And most people like don't have the confidence to tell someone like, yeah, dude, that's a good idea. Do it. 100%. And because of that, it's like hard to get like motivation from like outside sources to like execute on your dreams. And so I noticed too, is like when someone tells me that they enjoy my podcast, it like makes me want to keep going. It's like, oh man, I am doing something right. Just got to keep on pushing. And being able to do that for others, and then others do that for you, is like, I mean, why else would you want to be here,
Yep. So that's the determination. It's just making every action intentional, whether you're shopping or doing the dishes, preparing food, driving your car, shifting the mindset to where you are going to work so you can make the money so that you can support your dreams. And then that's just one small step. And then eventually you'll evolve and progress from there. And something that you're experiencing now doesn't have to be permanent. It's just a necessary stepping stone. And that the place that you are at is in its own way perfect. And that regardless of the visions and strict future that you see, life will unfold differently regardless. So you just have to let go and accept what comes to you in whichever way and form that takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that, man, it brought it up in this Gene Key, and I brought it up on an earlier podcast. So it's just always funny how like when an outside source of information like kind of reconfirms like a thought that you had from personal experience. But I had brought it up how a lot of the times the Marines who stayed in the Marine Corps because of the paycheck ended up being complainers. And it talks about how if you find yourself in a situation where you've lost your purpose, a lot of times those people end up becoming complainers.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes from the lack of not having a higher purpose. And it's like, if you love the Marine Corps, you're not going to complain about things because you know that you're doing your part, or that you have an importance. And, it's not so much also about maybe like the task at hand isn't the most glorifying, but you have a standard and you have a way of living that like sets yourself up to have a purposeful life. It's like whether, lifting weights every day might not be exciting for everyone, but you have to be in shape so that others can rely on you when the time comes, right? So it's like, the reason to go to the gym is going to be different for different people, but finding a reason to get up and go get the work done is much better than the guy that's being forced to do it. Because the guy that's being forced to go work out thinks that every run sucks and, oh, it's stupid to be in the weight room. Whereas the guy that wants to work out is like, we get to work out in the weight room today? Heck yeah, easy day, all day. Or even like, sometimes, it sucks being forced to wake up, but I try to think about it as like, now I have a reason to get up. It's easy to get up if I have a reason to get up. If I don't have a reason to get up, chances are I ain't getting up. But if someone else is relying on me to get up, 9 times out of 10, I'm up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with what you're saying about complaining, that's definitely, for sure, they don't have a way to express that energy, so it just builds up. And I feel like that's a very important reminder just for everyone, is that you should be active in some sort of way, because this energy does build up and you have to express it in some way. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you hear a lot of people like, I'm exercising the demons, or mm-hmm. It's like these energies really do exist inside of us, and they exist from a primitive era. So we still do have these animalistic energies within us, and there has to be some sort of outlet for that. And
Mhm.
so jujitsu definitely helps me, weightlifting definitely helps me, yoga, just moving the body and allowing the energies to flow through you instead of taking over and kind of creating these diseases in the body and mind.
Yeah. And like the stoic mindset too is like you're supposed to do these hardships without complaining. Like to complain is to hold you back from what it is that you're truly trying to accomplish. And so like the stoic way is to do it without complaining. And that rings so true is because like if you're doing it and you're complaining the whole time, all you're doing is bringing down the energy of everyone else. And so, yeah, it was always like a Marine Corps thing, like suffer in silence is like a term that people would say to you, or that you would hear to people who are like whimpering or like breathing really loud. It's like, if you're suffering, you suffer inside your mind. And you might wonder why that's an important skill, but, being stoic, having like a hard exterior is important as a life skill.
Yeah, and training the body therefore trains the mind, and your mind will only get stronger through these acts. So if you can't be positive, at least being silent and just being aware of the thoughts that are happening in your mind until you can possibly transmute those into like a positive.
Right. Yeah. And you can definitely transmute them. It's all about perspective, right? Like, do you have to do something or do you get to do something? Yeah, some things can suck. Like you might like, oh, why do we have to drill this move in jujitsu because it's boring or it sucks? But like, a basic escape. But it's the people who are the masters of the escapes that have the freedom in their decision making in jujitsu to really try the fancy stuff or the cooler stuff.
Yeah, most likely you don't want to do the thing. It's because you're not good at it. And therefore you should be doing it the most. It's like,
100%.
yeah, it's fine. You're not going to be perfect. No one is perfect in the beginning, but you at least have to get through that state.
Yep. And then so it talks about the repressive nature of the shadow, where essentially you're even aware of the bad habits that you're in, but you still don't take the action to get yourself out of it. And so you essentially stay in a cycle of bad habits and you know it. And I feel like we all know somebody like this where they know they're on the wrong path, that they're not taking care of themselves, or that they're slacking, or that there's something that they're struggling with. Even if you're at a very high level, you might still be aware of something that you're slacking in or something that's hurting you or holding you back, but you just stay in that cycle because it's a habit. And so, yeah, I really kind of resonated with that repressive nature because I feel like, again, it kind of just goes to like the ninth gene key is not any of my like core gene keys, but I still like relate heavily to it. Or at least I understand like there's pieces of me that struggle with some of these specific experiences.
Yeah, for sure. I can relate to being in that frozen state of habits and also seeing other people. And then even whenever you try to help them, you're like, hey, why are you doing that? And they're just like, oh, I know. Like, and they just kind of like shoo you away. And they're saying, I know, because they truly do know, but they're just incapable of changing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's very interesting. But this gene key is within the codon ring of light, and it correlates with 4 other gene keys, which are also in the ring of light. And this one being invincibility. There's also invisibility, light, and there's one other one that I'm missing. Regardless, it refers to the amount of light that you are allowing into the cells of the very body. And through allowing more light by being at a higher frequency and a higher state of mind, you're allowing higher manifestations to happen in your life. And then the opposite is true. If you're in a negative state of mind, then you are not allowing light to reach the DNA in the cells. And so therefore you're seeing negative manifestations happen in your life. So it's just like shifting the mindset in and of itself allows for higher consciousness to ring through you.
Yeah. I was listening to this gene key and I was on my way to open mat and I was just like truly experiencing like a really good mood, like life is good. I'm driving, I'm hitting my pen, drinking my energy drink. I'm about to go train really hard. It's nice outside. And, listening to this, talking about how powerful, like a good mindset and, that positive energy can do for you. But then I also saw like a homeless guy like just standing in the middle of a parking space, like just like zombie stare. And I was just like, damn, it's like just such a crazy world that we live in. But it's like just a reminder that even though we're in this positive state, that the people are still suffering. And it reminds me to just like, man, not only do I want to do well in this world, but I want to make sure I'm like giving back to those who need. But yeah, definitely that mindset change is such a big piece. I feel like we've all experienced talking to somebody where they're like, I notice this with young people a lot. You ask a young person how life is going, they all go, it's going. I get. They're always like melancholy. They're not like, if you ask old people, they'll kind of be like, fucking blah, blah, blah. They might like be very hateful, but all the young people are kind of just like, life is life. Like I'm dealing with this and that. And it's like, in our eyes, someone maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, especially 40s, you're like, you should be loving life. The life is the best right now. It should be great. Like everyone would give up anything to go back to 18. Imagine what it would be like to start over at 18 with what you got now. The life, you'd have life by the balls. And these kids that definitely have life by the balls, and they're kind of just like, oh, and it's just that like reminder of like why it is important to have that like good outlook on life. It's like, so when people ask me, I try to like always remember that, man, life is amazing. I'm doing awesome. Yes. Like maybe I don't feel awesome 24/7, but I definitely try to be aware that my day-to-day moments, my day-to-day life is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's about like knowing that there are unlimited possibilities and being able to tap into those. That's for sure a thing that I feel like the older I'm getting, I realize that there is limitless possibilities. And a truth that I told someone yesterday, which I was surprised that even came out of my mouth. I was like, well, I think that was for me. But I said it to someone else, and I was like, when you come into work, you get to recreate yourself every single time. Like, no one knows your past. Most of these people aren't even from this state or city. They don't know who you are, where you came from. You can literally pretend to have a different accent today. You can pretend that you are coming from the wealthiest family and just recreating that. Like, coming into work and feeling all the negative things that have ever happened to you portrays in your persona. So just showing up and just creating the version of yourself that you want to portray to other people. And like you said, like exposing happy energy that like helps other people around you. Like the other day, someone was like, man, you're amazing. Like I just see you like happy dancing and smiling around like when you're not taking care of us. And I'm like, yeah, I just try to be as positive as I can. And he was like, doing a really good job, and like gave me a hug. And it's like just that small detail of like me enjoying life in my own way and like joking around with people, dancing, smiling, like that makes a big difference on someone that might not be having a good day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what the kids don't understand because they're so like still ingrained in their past and like what happened to them.
Mm.
And they're like only focused on really creating their identity, so they maybe don't even have a foundational identity to begin with. So they're kind of confused as to and what to be.
Yeah. It's always funny how like when you give someone advice, sometimes you're like hearing yourself say it and you're like, dang, I knew that.
I was like, man, was that for me? Like, she was like, oh, thank you. You really put my mind at ease because I was really anxious about these ideas. And I was like, yeah. It's like, me too. That's why I'm able to say this is because I've gone through it. Like, I know what you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, she's like, the people that we're engaging with, like, on a daily basis, they're really intimidating. And I'm like, trust me, I know. I came from, like, super poor background. Like, I don't feel like I fit in. But just understanding that they're humans just like us. And like I said, it's all in the confidence and the aura that you hold within yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're talking about the gift of determination. I just wanted to put my last little piece on that, on the power of repetition. I've experienced that with jiu-jitsu, and it's just like how it gets easier over time. Yeah, we kind of brought it into the podcast, how we've been building it up, but even with my personal podcast, how much easier it is to be a host, and jiu-jitsu in general. We always have like, you're always asking me like how I'm able to train, or that I should take a break, but it's like so easy for me to train daily and not take rest breaks. I mean, obviously I still need them, but just ingraining training every day, training a couple times a week used to be the hardest thing in the world. And then training once a day used to be the hardest thing in the world. And then training multiple times a day was hard. And now it's just like easy. Now I can train 2 sessions a day and still manage my health. So again, I feel like one of the things that people really struggle with, and maybe we brought up on one of the earlier ones, but people try to make things too difficult in the beginning, when we all know that we should start with baby steps. And oftentimes we don't learn it until we become really good at something. But oftentimes when we progress in something, we started by the smallest step and then just progress by getting larger and larger. Right. And so like I've attempted to help people work out, and then, they want to like start first. It starts off with 30-minute mitts, and then it starts off, oh, let's run. And then, oh, let's do an hour-long run, and let's drive over here, and we'll go to this park and we'll run for an hour, and then we'll do this. And then they don't even show up for the session at all. And it's like, dude, we could literally just start by walking outside your door and just doing some mitts. It doesn't even have to be 30 minutes. We can do 20 minutes. Let's just like get in the door and start. Then once we get used to it, then we can build. And then before you know it, you'll be doing hour-long sessions multiple times a week. But we got to start with just starting.
Yeah, it's funny. It usually starts with like an outside influence, like motivating you. But then once you feel that spark within yourself, it's like self-motivation at that point. It's almost like a drive and desire that you have, because you are seeing improvements that you once thought were impossible.
Yeah. And it's like the level that I'm at now, like I wouldn't say I'm a pro athlete, but I try to keep up as much as I can. And it's like, if you tell like a white belt what all that they got to do to be competitive at this level, they're never going to get there. It's like, you got to do conditioning, strength training, sauna, cold tub, hot tub. You need to be training multiple times a day, jiu-jitsu, mat times. You need to be teaching when you can. And that's just like the basics. Now, water, diet, sleep, paying all these people. You got to travel to multiple gyms. You got to have multiple coaches. Like the list goes on and on and on of all the different things that you need to be doing to set yourself apart so that you can win at the highest levels. And like a white belt's like, I'm trying to train 4 times a week. One thing is like, someone's like, yeah, I'm feeling really stuck in jiu-jitsu. Or it's like, oh, I just can't get anything on you, and I don't understand why. And I go, well, how often are you training? Oh, like on Mondays and once every other Sunday. And I'm like, well, dude.
You can't come to a ginormous conclusion with 2 hours out of a whole week.
Yeah, it's like, well, I train. Like, how often are you training? 2 to 3 times a week. And when people say 2 to 3 times a week, it's like 1 to 2 times a week. Sometimes 2, maybe 1 time, 3 times, And then it's like, well, dude, I'm training like 12 times a week, not including strength and conditioning, not including these things.
And any answer you give them will not stick because they're not experiencing it. It's like, usually they ask questions that are unanswerable through words alone. It's like, nope, you just have to keep going. You'll figure it out. Like, nothing I can say can really help you. Right.
And like the classic joke of like, oh, I got to get in shape before I do jiu-jitsu. And it's like, no, dude, getting in shape gets easier once you start doing jiu-jitsu. You don't get in shape. No, you never see anyone that gets in shape and then tries jiu-jitsu. You see people who do jiu-jitsu and then they get in shape, because getting in shape then gets easier. Once you're committed to jiu-jitsu, and you could argue that jiu-jitsu won't get you in shape. It could. Some people they'll just start doing jiu-jitsu and that's all they needed. They just start doing jiu-jitsu and then everything kind of just falls into place. Some people, they'll do jiu-jitsu and you can still stay out of shape because, we all have different ways of dealing with stress. And if like one of your ways of dealing with stress is stress eating, you might be the kind of person that starts doing jiu-jitsu but then you go home and you just eat like way more. But as you start doing jiu-jitsu, you realize like the advantages that come from being in shape, you'll start to put in more effort towards those things. Like you'll get more motivated to stay a little longer or to show up a little earlier, or, I'm already going to be at the gym. Maybe I'll, they got those kettlebells over there. I'll do a little bit of kettlebells. Or you know what? The purple belt, he's always working out after. Maybe I'll go do something with him or he'll help me. Like once you get it in there, you get so many more opportunities to kind of expand what you got to do. So again, just getting through the door and just starting jiu-jitsu, that's when getting in shape happens. And it's so funny. There's this guy I know. He's a sponsor of my buddy Paul, who I do podcasts with sometimes. And when I first met him, he has like his own pest control business. And he sponsors people and sponsors jiu-jitsu oriented things. But he hadn't done it himself. He was just a fan of it. And then finally he got into jiu-jitsu. Man, they posted a picture of him the other day. And so my buddy said, Jake. And I was like, that's Jake Ingledew? And he was like, yeah, man. I was like, dude, he looks great. He's been losing weight. He's like, yep, started jiu-jitsu, lost 50 pounds. And now he's out like taking pictures, hiking. He's got a great smile, thin face. When before, he was just like a little hefty in the belly, kind of like sitting like this, like hunched shoulders. And like, oh, hey guys, like, oh, I love what you guys are doing. Kind of like, not trying to be mean, but just like very like weak energy, not weak, but just kind of like, oh, don't mind me. Now he's like out like this, foot up on a rock, out on a trail, and like doing like this with a handsome smile. And I'm like, dude, holy crap. Like you just from a picture, I can sense how much like he seems like a much happier individual. And and he gives all the credit to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, for sure. Whichever path you decide to take can definitely be very powerful, like jiu-jitsu has been for us.
Yeah. Any path of like
self-improvement,
but I guess, for sure self-improvement, but I would say as far as like, health and stuff, something that moves you.
Yeah.
Something that you move. Yeah.
That reminds me of that really funny meme that you sent me with the ladies. It was like, these middle-aged ladies really be trying to do anything.
Yeah, you haven't seen this trend. There's this trend on Instagram where they're like posting all the different ways that middle-aged white ladies get in shape. And they'll be like jumping on trampolines. They got like the bouncy shoes and they're like doing high steps, or they're attached at the hips like on rubber bands and they're like jumping in the air. It really is true. But
at least they're moving.
And they
have a class atmosphere, so it's positive in some way. Like they have other people around them that are motivated, and if that's what gets you going, do a trampoline class. Yeah. Do a dance class. Yeah. Do a swimming class. Like Zumba. It doesn't really matter what you do.
Zumba class. They've got a Zumba upstairs outside my gym. That place popping. They got all kinds of people going in there. But the people doing the Zumba class, I guarantee they look a lot better than the people not doing the Zumba class. So I try not to hate on any type of movement, get in there and express yourself.
Yeah, and the same thing with saying that, I need to get in shape before you do something. And everyone's perception of getting in shape is different, and it changes with your age also. So regardless of what shape you're in, that could be someone's in shape version of themselves. So it doesn't really matter where you start as long as you're starting.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything else. You got anything else that you want to talk about?
It was talking about the microcosmic to the macrocosmic, and how that everything that happens within us happens in the macrocosmic as well. And that just kind of reminded me that it could be like worlds within worlds and worlds within worlds, and just infinitely within itself. It's like we imagine ourselves to be so giant, but there could be beings way bigger than us. Mm-hmm. And we could just be like a section of that being. So
yeah, this was giving me mad Ant-Man vibes.
Yeah.
It's talking about invincible, invisible, and the infinitesimal. Yeah, it was kind of just making me think of like Ant-Man and Quantum Mania, and um, it really is like the the idea of details and how they can be overwhelming. It's all very interesting.
Yeah, so focusing on the micro details, which therefore translates into the macro. And yeah, just becoming a master of all the small details and really like placing them intentionally in an order that gets you to that vision. And it's
Yeah.
saying, I just want to read this quote because I know I'll mess it up if I don't. It says, "You must capture the energy of your dream and hold on to it deep inside because it is that dream that will act as the lens to focus the power of magic and manifestation in your life."
Heck yeah.
So harnessing the energy and vision of your dream.
Sweet. Well, that's a good note to end. All right. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much.